Hi guys, welcome back to my lab and today's video in which I'm going to be ranking all of the eyeshadow palettes that I used in the month of January. If you're not new to my channel, then you know that I'm kind of on a low buy journey. I'm trying to do a low buy year. I'm still purchasing some products. I'm monitoring how much I'm spending, so it's going to be a combination of new products to my collection, products that were in my collection for a long time unused, and some that were just old palettes that I just hadn't used in a while. I'm going to be ranking them for you and giving you some mini reviews in case you were interested in some of these palettes or if you already own them and you kind of forgot. Before we get into the video, if you're new here, I'm Jody. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. Hope you're going to enjoy it, and if you do, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up while you're watching and consider subscribing if you would like to be friends. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into the video. Before we start ranking, I wanted to mention two palettes that are not going to be in this video. These are the two Natasha Denona Glam Face palettes. I have both the light and the dark option, but because these are face palettes, I'm actually going to be sharing them in my beauty report, which is basically going to be a review video of all of the products that I'm using in my collection. I have two drawers here that I use like as a monthly makeup basket. One of them has all palettes and the other one has everything else. So stay tuned for another video in which I tell you what products I've been using from my collection, what's getting decluttered, and so on. So those will be featured in that video since they are face palettes. As I share the palettes with you, I haven't used every single shade. Some of the palettes I've only used once, and I'm just going to establish my thoughts based on that, put them back into my collection, and I'll be working on new palettes this month. So the one I'm wearing on my eyes today is going to be featured in February's roundup. So I'm going to start in position number 8. This is the Give Me Glow Bad Witch Club Season Fall palette. So this is something that released just after Halloween, I would say, and I've only used this palette once. And so I guess I should have known when I purchased the palette that it was going to be a very bold color story, but also one that is very, very deep. There's not a lot of light shades here. You have maybe 1-2 shades that are lighter tones. Everything else is going to be really rich and more jewel tones as well. Another thing that I wanted to mention here is that with Give Me Glow, the formula that I really, really love from Give Me Glow are the metallics, and there are only 3 in this palette. And even though they're beautiful metallics, there's nothing really that special about them. I do enjoy the shade Coven Confessions because it's the most unique in my opinion. And these 3 shades make a really beautiful monochromatic look that's kind of like that periwinkle blue color that's for the color of the year. So even though the palette quality is fine, their matte formula is not my absolute favorite. Their shimmer formula I do love, but because there's only 3, this palette is coming in at number 8. Now, I still like the palette. I'm glad that I have it, but this month I went back to work after my December break, and it's just not one I had the opportunity to use a whole lot because of the more jewel tone color story. So I think it's fine. There's really no palettes in this video that I don't like, so that's good, but somebody had to be on the bottom. In position number 7, I have the Victoria Beckham Beauty. This is the Smoky Eye Brick in the shade Tuxedo. So I believe that she has 5 different colorways of this product, and it's just a teeny tiny little eyeshadow palette. It's one that I used in a video in December when I reviewed the entire Victoria Beckham line, and what I do enjoy about this palette is that it is a very quick one and done look. It's just not very versatile, right? When you're using it, you're not going to get a lot of variety here. You're going to kind of pretty much do the same look over and over again, but I do like to pair it with cream eyeshadow, topper eyeshadows, and a couple of the palettes that I have here to share with you as well. So even though the quality is very good, price is a little bit high, and it's just not a very versatile palette. This is something that I prefer and appreciate more when I'm traveling, when I'm throwing makeup in a makeup bag and getting ready on the go, which is just not happening right now. So just because this is going to be a very limiting color story and very neutral as well, even bordering on cool tones, which don't typically flatter me all that well, I'm going to rank this palette in position number 7. Position number 6 is going to go to my Colourpop Fade into Hue eyeshadow palette. Now, ordinarily, before I got one of the other palettes that I have in today's video, I would have really recommended this palette to a beginner that wanted to do more colorful looks and have monochromatic looks, because it's arranged kind of in columns so you can easily get a monochromatic look. The Colourpop shadows are a decent formula for the price that you're paying, but these larger palettes do have a tendency to be more expensive. I never recommend that you pay full price for these palettes. I believe full price is about $37, but a lot of times these palettes come to Ulta and you can get them 20% off when they have like a non-prestige coupon, since Colourpop is part of that grouping. And also the Colourpop website has very frequent 30% off discount days, and also sometimes they will just select one of these palettes to put on a really deep discount. So I never suggest that you pay full price for it. I have a palette in this video that I would recommend a little bit more because I think the quality is better. Overall, it's a really bright palette. I've kind of used a shade here or there. I actually paired this palette with the Bad Witch Club palette at one point because, like I said, the Bad Witch Club was missing some of those lighter shades and this palette has them. So I was able to blend out the mattes from that palette using this one. And like I said, the quality is really good. It's really good for a beginner, but I have something that I would recommend a little bit more in terms of quality. If you like the look that I'm wearing today, I didn't create it using this palette, but you could definitely get something really similar if you had this palette in your collection. So if you like the look, I definitely suggest you try it. It's basically a corally pink upper lid, and then I have a little bit of purple on the lower lash line. So definitely a look you can duplicate if you have this palette in your collection. Just one quick note, there are what seem to be more like pressed glitters, the shade Kaleidoscope as well as the shade Lucky Charm, or a little bit more of that flaky pressed glitter formula of Colourpop. So if you don't enjoy that kind of shade, there are a couple of them in here, but with so many shadows, you're definitely still going to have options. So I wouldn't write it off just because of those, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. In position number 5, I have the palette that I probably use the most this month, and that's going to be the Vieve Muse palette. So this is the second eyeshadow palette to the Vieve collection. I shared another video using a lot of Vieve products back in December as well, and I wanted to try out the eyeshadow palette a little bit more, and it's very suitable for going back to work. You can see with the color story, it's more of a mauve-y and warm neutral eyeshadow palette in terms of the color story, and so for my job, for Zoom meetings and things like that, it's super appropriate. You can get a very quick and easy look using just 3 shadows, and you can pull a little bit more warm, a little bit more mauve-y purple, and you can do soft neutrals as well. It's a really easy eyeshadow palette to use, and I really enjoy it. It's very appropriate for office and things like that. And so this one is in position number 5. I have so few palettes and I'm already losing count. If you haven't tried Vieve, you can purchase them on the Cult Beauty website. They have pretty good delivery times even though they are shipping from the UK. I have purchased all of my products that are from the Vieve brand from Cult Beauty's website, and I haven't had any issues. I have never purchased from her website directly. Position number 4 and 3, it's kind of a toss-up. Honestly, both of these palettes are very similar to one another, almost interchangeable in my opinion, but I think that in position number 4, I'm going to go ahead and place the Makeup by Yolondo Paint Me Chrome palette. This was a newer palette to my collection. I purchased it in December and I received it in the end of December, so I started playing with it this month, and I like the palette. It's really nice quality. I was expecting something along the lines of the Adept Plain Jane palette, which has multi-chromes, and the palette, the shadows are almost jelly-like. I was expecting a formula kind of more like that, and then also when they were advertising this palette, they were talking about the quality of the pigments and having a lot of duochromes or multi-chrome shades. That's true for some of them. Like for instance, this first shade right here is one that I really enjoy because it's a hybrid. It has multicolor shimmers in it, and it really has a tendency to pick up color from whatever's around it. So it's a shadow that you can use with any look whatsoever. However, a lot of the other shades, even though they are slightly duochrome, the shifts are within the same color family, and it's a little bit harder to see and appreciate, especially when you apply it to the eye. In terms of the formula, it was really good. It was my first time purchasing from Makeup by Yolondo, and they shipped it out really quickly, despite the fact that this palette launched on Christmas Day, if I remember correctly. The shipping was super secure. I only had an issue with one shadow kind of popping out, but I haven't had any issue. I kind of like smushed it back in there, and I haven't had any issues since. So this is the kind of shadow that I was pairing with kind of like my Victoria Beckham palette. I would create kind of a basic nude and then apply some of these softer shimmers on the lid just slightly to give it a little bit more interest. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the palette quite a bit. I do have to give them credit for how fast the shipping was, especially right during the holiday season. I was really impressed with that. It's just a really pricey palette, and for that reason I'm placing it lower than the other palette I'm going to share right now, in the number 3 spot. So in the number 3 spot, it's going to be my It's Belle, the Flare Collection Remixed palette. So this is a company based out of Puerto Rico, where I'm from actually, and they ship out of Puerto Rico. And if you look at this palette, I haven't used it a whole lot either. I've used it a little bit here and there, and I really like this formula. I find it very similar to what is in the Makeup by Yolondo formula, except this is going to be at a more affordable price point. Along the same lines, you're getting a lot more shades in this palette, and the amount of product per shade that you're getting is more in this palette itself. So this one is made in the PRC. One thing about the Makeup by Yolando palette is I couldn't find where it was made. I looked both on the packaging as well as on their website, and it doesn't say where the palette was made. This one is made in the PRC. You have the ingredients on the back over here, and the palette does have a mirror. It's nice packaging. The shades are really nice again. It's a pairing palette just like the Paint Me Chrome palette, but this one takes a lot longer to be fulfilled. So this is one of those companies where you do pre-orders pretty much like a month or two in advance, and then when they ship the palettes, it takes a while to get to you. This is one that I had sitting in my collection for a while. It's not a recent purchase. I hadn't gotten around to playing with it, and I pulled it out because I ordered their fall palette. I think it's called Fall into Dawn. It's deeper shades, more jewel tone shades for sure, but similar formula to this one, and I'm really enjoying this one. My favorite shade is Rose Water. It's so pretty. It looks silver, but it has a pink and purple shift when you apply it. It's a really pretty palette. I'm enjoying the formula, but like I said, these were almost interchangeable. I think I put the It's Belle Cosmetics a little bit higher just because of the price point and my expectations based on how they presented the palette. In position number 2, you've probably guessed if you already saw my January favorites, the missing 2 palettes, but this is the Pat McGrath Labs and Bridgerton collection. I put this in my January favorites because it's a really pretty color story. It's not just pink like Divine Rose 1, 2, and then all the mini rose palettes and all of the pinks that she's done in her collection. I really enjoyed this new satin finish formula, and then even though this shade is so unassuming, it's so beautiful when you apply it. It's a metallic shade. I did a whole video on this collection if you want to see a look and swatches and all of the information. I also really appreciate she included an astral shade. It has fallout, but if you put a sticky base, usually I use it with her artistry wand or some kind of glitter glue. I don't have any issues, and it does add a little bit of a special touch, but you can definitely just stick to the other shades and have something a little bit more wearable. This matte shade blends really nicely, so you can actually apply it really softly and just blend it out just a little bit with the shade, and you're still more in the neutral family and something that's going to be very daytime office appropriate as well. So I think even though it's only 6 pans of eyeshadow, it's a little more versatile than you might think. Someone made a comment on my video that they're feeling that the palette is not that versatile, and I think the reason for that is because you're seeing people do the reviews and they try to use every single shade, and when you combine all the shades, then yeah, the looks are going to be similar because you have all the tones. But if you really stick to like 3 shades, like even just these 3, you get such a beautiful neutral look. And then you can stick to those 2 rosy tones, and then you have something pink. And if you apply this, it has a beautiful blue shift, so it gives you something totally different. I think it's a little more versatile than YouTube is making it out to be. This is one I definitely wore to work, and it was totally fine. I didn't feel that I was too out there. So I'm really enjoying that. And so in position number 2, even though I'm still mad about how late this took to get to me, I didn't get it until the middle of January, and this one I ordered on December 26th. So again, I really have to give a lot of credit to Playing in Makeup by Yolondo for fulfillment when, you know, even the Pat McGrath, a larger, more established brand, didn't fulfill as quickly. This one's available on Sephora now, so you can always order it from there. I believe it's back on the Pat McGrath website, and I'm hearing that those palettes are being shipped out in a timely fashion, so maybe it was just a problem with the initial batch of palettes. And in position number 1, if you saw my favorites video, you're not going to be surprised to see the Blend Bunny Cosmetics Surge palette. This, I believe, was the second palette in their collection, but it's only the first one that I purchased, and I believe I ordered it last month. It's hard for me to remember. I don't think I purchased it in January, so I will be showing a makeup haul of all of the products that I purchased in January, like a collective makeup haul, and I believe that this was in December. Not 100% sure. I have to go back and check my notes, but stay tuned for that video. But I wanted to share this one as my number 1 position because of the matte formula. These mattes blend so beautifully. The palette that I'm wearing today actually impressed me and reminded me a little bit of this palette in its blend, but I feel like I still like this palette more because it has those monochromatic columns like the Colourpop one, but these colors are a lot more rich, so you can get a lot more depth rather than something so pastel like the Fade into Hue palette. This one gives you a lot more options. I've worn this palette several times because I was just so impressed by the formula, especially these lighter color shades up here. It makes it so easy to blend out these more mid-tone shades that would otherwise be really intimidating. And the problem I was seeing with the Give Me Glow palette, I didn't have anything here to blend out those shades, and that's really what inspired me to bring out the Colourpop palette. So this one has everything you need to blend out the colors and create really pretty looks. And even though they look intense, you can definitely apply them softly and get a more wearable look. In my favorites video, I was wearing a lot of these greens here. I really love this blue shade, which is called Chills. It's like a grayish blue, but it applies so beautifully and so true to color on the skin, which I didn't expect for pastel shades. Like I'm not gonna give up on how impressed I am with those shadows. They recently launched a new palette, which is called the Dollhouse palette, and it has a more wearable, neutrally pink, rosy nude color story, which may appeal to a wider audience. So if you are intimidated by colors like this, then I definitely recommend picking up that palette. It's getting really good reviews, and based on my experience with this one, I don't doubt for a second that it's going to be really great. We have a row of shimmers in this palette, and I really like the quality of the shimmers. They remind me a lot of, like, if you've ever used the Sydney Grace metallics, that you know they're almost, you know, they're very rich foiled metallic shadows. They remind me of those. They apply really well. Again, because I have hooded and really oily eyelids, I usually use a sticky base to apply the shadows unless I'm intentionally trying to get a more sheer and wearable look. But when I'm going for color, I want that pow, and so I pile it on, and I think that they perform really nicely. I really want that Dollhouse palette. So there you have it. That was my ranking video of all the palettes that I used in the month of January. Let me know if you've tried any of these and what your thoughts are on the specific palette, or if any of them have piqued your interest and you're interested in trying them out. I would love to hear about that as well. I'm looking forward to putting them back into my eyeshadow palette collection. My drawer is now empty and ready for all of the palettes that I'm using this month, starting with the one that I'm wearing today, which I'm really enjoying. I think it functioned really, really well. Like I said, if you're interested in hearing about the foundations, concealers, blushes, contours, all of those products that I've been using throughout the month, I will do another roundup video and just give you my thoughts on those. I'll probably do it just showing the products. I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna film that, but I have to get to it really, really soon because, again, I want to empty my drawers so I can start organically filling it up with either things I recently purchased or things I am adding from my collection because I want to rediscover what I already own. This is part of my journey, which I'm calling Operation Curation, so if you're enjoying this kind of video, then don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel if you would like to see more. I would really love to see you on a future video. I do upload several times a week, but I haven't been able to commit to a formal schedule, so be sure that you hit the bell so that you're notified when I have a new video. Thanks again for joining me for today's video. I hope you're doing really well, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon on my next one. Bye-bye.